Hi again, pre-algebra students. We're on section 4.6 on complex fractions and order of operations. So this first video will just be on the complex fractions part. So what is a complex fraction? A complex fraction is a fraction with fractions in the numerator and the denominator. So it's complex. You have fractions in the numerator and fractions in the denominator, like 1/4 over 2/3, or 1/4 plus a third all over 6/11, or 3/4 minus 1 all over 6. Okay, so it has fractions in both the numerator and the denominator of the fraction. So they look pretty difficult, but let's take a look at how to simplify some of these. Okay, so for example, 1/4 over 2/3. So the fraction 1/4 over 2/3, again, means 1/4 divided by 2/3. So another way to write this is 1/4 divided by 2/3. Okay, and this is letter A on your handout, by the way. So since we already know how to divide fractions, if we write it out like this, we should know how to do it because we did it in section 4.3, I believe. Okay, so if you remember how to divide fractions, this is good review. We don't divide, we multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. So instead of dividing by 2/3, we multiply by 3/2. Okay, remember to multiply, you multiply straight across. But first we look to see if we can simplify any numerator with any denominator. And this one we can. So 1 times 3 is 3, and 4 times 2 is 8. So 1/4 over 2/3 is the same thing as 3/8. Okay, let's take a look at another one. Letter B says 7y over 10 all over 1/5. Okay, so again, this means 7y over 10 divided by 1/5, which is the same thing as doing 7y over 10 times 5 over 1. Okay, because dividing is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. See if we can reduce first. It looks like the 5 and 10 can be reduced. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 10 twice. Multiply straight across. 7y times 1 is 7y, and 2 times 1 is 2. So you'd get 7y over 2. For some reason, looks like it's a little bit blurry on this one, but hopefully it's good enough to see that. Okay, so that's how you simplify a complex fraction. 7y over 10 divided by 1/5. We just did that. So why don't you try letter C? Negative 4z, which means negative 4z over 1, over 2/5. Okay, and you can pause the video if you need to do that now. All right, they do get quite a bit harder if you look at letter D and letter E. How do you do these difficult problems? So I'm going to teach you 2 ways to do this. One way is going to be the long way. I'm going to call the second one the shortcut. So first of all, let's look at letter E. 1/2 plus 1/8 all over 3/4 minus 1/6. So we're going to do this problem twice using 2 different methods. So one method is just to do it out with all the fractions. First, add the numerators together, subtract the denominators, and then flip and multiply like we just learned. So to do that, the common denominator for the numerators would be 8. So the first one we have to write over 8. I'm going to write it right next to it. 2 times 4 gives you 8. So 1 times 4 is 4. 1/2 is the same thing as 4/8. Now we can add the numerators. 4/8 plus 1/8 is 5/8. Get a common denominator for the denominators. I believe that would be 12. So rewrite both of them with 12. 6 times 2 is 12. So 1 times 2 is 2. 2/12 is the same thing as 1/6. Okay, write the second one over 12. 4 times 3 is 12. So 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, so we have our common denominators. 3/12 minus 2/12 is 7/12. Now we have a problem like the ones we just did for A and B. where this is the same thing as 5/8 divided by 7/12, which means 5/8 times the reciprocal multiplied by the reciprocal, 12/7. And then you can reduce first. It looks like the 12 and the 8 reduce to a 4 goes in there twice, 4 goes in there 3 times. Multiply straight across. 5 times 3 is 15, and 2 times 7 is 14. So you would get 15 over 14 if you do it out by first getting the common denominators, adding, subtracting, and then you have your 4-story fraction, or your fraction over your fraction. Flip and multiply to get your final answer. Alright, so let's do this problem again using what I call a shortcut, or the shortcut method. For the shortcut method, you multiply the entire fraction by the least common denominator of all the fractions. Okay, if you multiply everything in the top and everything on the bottom by the same number, you're not changing the fraction. So the least common denominator of 2, 8, 4, and 6, I believe, is 24. All 4 fractions, the denominators, go into 24. So if we multiply the whole numerator by 24 and the whole denominator by 24, what's going to happen is it's going to get rid of all the fractions, and it's going to make it nice and easy. So multiply everything by 24, or 24 over 1. Okay, again, as long as you multiply the denominator and numerator by the same thing, you're not changing the problem. Okay, so let's start with the first one. 2 and 24 reduces to 1 and 12. So you get 12 over 1, which is just 12. For the second one, the 8 and 24 will reduce to 1 and 3. You get 3 over 1, which is just plus 3. For the one down here, the 4 and 24 reduced to a 1 and a 6. 6 times 3 is 18. Over 1 is just 18. And the last one, 6 and 24, reduced to 1 and 4. So you get minus 4 over 1, which is just 4. So as you can see, multiplying everything by a least common denominator of all the fractions gets rid of all the fractions and just makes them whole numbers. Now you can do this. 12 plus 3 is 15. 18 minus 4 is 14. And you get the same answer as before, 15 over 14. Okay, let me know if you have any questions on those when you get to class. I'm going to do D also, but first I have to erase the board, and then I'll let you try G. Okay, so let's go back to letter D, because we skipped it. This one says y over 5 minus 2 equals, or all over, 3 over 10. So a complex fraction. If you remember, we can write the 2 as 2 over 1. So let's use this shortcut method again. The least common denominator between 1, 5, and 10 would be 10, because they all go into 10. So we can multiply each fraction by 10 over 1, and we're not changing anything because we're multiplying the numerator and denominator by the same fraction. Okay, so the first one, the 5 and 10, we reduce to a 1 and 2. 5 goes in there once, 5 goes in there twice, and then we just be left with 2 times y over 1, which is 2y. The second one, they're already over 1, so it's just 2 times 10, which is 20, and it's minus because it's minus. And the last one, the 10s are reduced to a 1 and a 1. We'd be left with 3 over 1. Okay, we can't do 2y minus 20 because they're not like terms. So you can just leave this one as 2y minus 20 all over 3. Okay, so that's how you do complex fractions. And again, you can use either method you want, either the shortcut method or the first way I taught you. So why don't you try to do letter G now, and let's see how you're doing it, and we'll answer any questions you have when you get to class. All right, thank you.